In case you haven't noticed, Kristin Tattar has gotten so many sponsors this offseason. And today I thought it'd be good to go over every company and rank which ones are 5 stars and which ones are an abominable 1 star. All right, so we already know about the Latitude deal, 4-year, €500,000 contract. Almost certainly she's probably going to get more money before that time even comes. She is definitely the face of the sport in so many places in Europe, but even in the States, she still is selling out discs like basically no one else in FPO. So her brand ranks probably higher than almost anybody else besides Simon & Paul. But with that said, there's been a couple of sponsors that have just recently announced their ties with Kristin, and I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it because there are a lot of nuances when it comes to a totally different culture than in the States. But before we get into the negatives, there was one post 4 days ago that I did think was very intriguing because it was so much more true to what we kind of think about Kristin, and that is that she finished some sort of holistic training. And once again, this feels like one of the situations where I just don't fully understand what's going on here, but I think the gist is that it's kind of like a self-help program over the course of a year where you kind of develop what you're striving to become, and it seems like it's probably just overall a great trend that Kristin is striving to become a better version of her, because she seriously had some battles, especially last year. She was just like crying in moments where it seemed like it wasn't even really about disc golf. She was just having such immense stress put on herself. And even in her post, she stated there were times that every second of being alive seemed unbearable. And she goes on to state that she's in a much better place, feeling good. So that was just an overall good thing that I feel like people are not talking about because it's not like clickbaity. So that was just a good trend I wanted to bring up. But with that, there are some other sponsorships. And I want to make note here is that the big thing that I want to see out of these pro athletes is, does it align with your brand as a professional disc golfer? There are certainly a lot of brands that are willing to give you money, but if it doesn't align with kind of who you are and what kind of brand you want, then is it ultimately that good? So just bringing up that. So first one is a 24/7 Fitness, where she's signing a 2-year deal with this company. I can't say anything about it, but presumably there are basically no downsides. She is a professional athlete. She is working out nonstop. Obviously she needs somewhere to work out, so a gym sponsorship just only makes sense. So 5 star. And then next up, this restaurant Martin in Pärnu, Estonia, certainly seems like it's on brand. She mentions how it aligns with her goals by staying healthy, being quick, while also offering vegan options. It definitely seems like just a great restaurant that I'd probably like to go to. Overall, very little downside, if any, so definitely a 5 star. Next up is something that dives a little bit closer to the edge of being questionable, but still probably not that bad. And that is that she just announced a mineral sponsorship with Ecosh, and it basically sounds like just a sleep remedy to help you sleep. And obviously, minerals are probably one of these things that there are no potential big downsides, but the biggest thing is they arguably do nothing. That's probably going to be the issue with most of these vitamin sponsorships. They are basically just trying to get you to believe whatever claim they have. In this case, it's sleep. But again, the downsides about this company are very few, because sure, they may not do anything, but for the most part, they're not really going to harm you. It is an Estonian-based brand, so I bet Kristin probably didn't think twice about it. She was like, sure, yeah, you want to throw me money as a vitamin sponsor? Sure, I'm down. So because it probably has no true effectiveness, I'm going to rate this 3 out of 5, but it still is in that realm of kind of supporting what a professional athlete is. And then next up, she sort of got sponsored by Porsche Estonia, going on to say that like by allowing Kristin to drive Porsches while she travels is going to make her time back home as a professional athlete better and easier. Very interesting, and states that they are happy to support Kristin at the local level and thus making Estonian sports more visible all over the world. And this is certainly interesting because there is no sponsorship. As far as I can tell, the only thing that Porsche is doing is giving her a car whenever she's home. She's not receiving any money. She is not receiving a car. She's basically being allowed to rent out this Porsche for free. So while this is very cool to be able to drive Porsche, it doesn't really meet the criteria of having any positive or negative thing because there is no sponsor. This is basically Porsche just saying, hey, we have a rental. We are down to let you rent it whenever you're home. And that's that. So whatever. So question mark out of 5. But obviously there's the last sponsor that I bet you already have some inkling about, and that is PAF. This is a Finnish-based gambling company, and I've tried very hard to figure out what exactly this company's reputation is. And it seems much like other gambling sites, they try very hard to kind of moderate what is seen in the Google results. So basically the only information that I can glean about what is like true about this is a customer review site about the company that arguably is going to be a little bit biased because people are going to be like, hey, I lost money, screw you. And arguably you cannot say that is valid information. And sifting through these was very interesting, but I did think there was one particular review that had some amount of merit, stating that their return to player percentage is not aligned with the provider percentage, thus scamming their users of fair play mechanics. So basically, if you're playing slots, you might get like a 40% win percentage on some sites, whereas this you might get like a 30%. That's kind of what I'm gleaming from this. And it seems very hard to verify or validate that that is actually true, but at least looking at the site, it looks so very weird and cringy and feels like a gambling site from like the 90s. So I'm not ultimately sure how they're even still like a thing. So as far as like their online gambling goes, I'm going to give this like a 1 out of 10. Feels not right. Feels like it's not really promoting anything positive, but they do also offer sports gambling, which to me is just a much clearer value proposition because you know that there's nothing being fake. There's no foul play besides maybe having lines that aren't perfectly aligned with like the live rate, but that is a very, very small infraction to make. So if this was being marketed as a sports gambling website, honestly, I'd have no problems. Like if this was DraftKings and Kristin signed with DraftKings, I'd be like, cool, yeah, whatever. Like, is that the best? Probably not. But I feel like people that are sponsored by DraftKings very rarely have a truly negative intent. But when it comes to online gambling for just basically a coin toss, that is where I believe it comes to a much more gray area where it seems like it is just a mostly negative endeavor because it does seem like if you are poor, you're going to try this, try to win some money, lose some money, and ultimately it seems like there are no true winners in much the same way that people that are sponsored by Kick doing slot machine streams where they bet millions of dollars, but it ultimately doesn't even matter because they're getting paid by Kick and Stake.com was just a very negative look. And so while it is certainly cool that you can do sports betting on this site, even though you can't do disc golf, which is funny, the fact that there is so much of this site that is marketed towards these basically coin toss games, I do believe this is a negative look for Kristin. And it definitely makes me wonder what aligned to have this particular sponsor come into fruition. Was it like 10K, 100K, 500K? I have no clue, but it certainly seems like if she was willing to do the sponsor, then it probably was a decent amount because she had to expect some amount of backlash. I will say that when I was in Finland, there was a much higher degree of gambling going on. It seems like the culture was just much more down to gamble. I don't know if that's good or bad, but that is just a trend I saw. So it might be that this is kind of the culture, and even though we perceive it as pretty much just straight negative, it is maybe just not seen as bad in these Nordic countries, hard to say. But without a doubt, in conclusion, we expect Kristin to have pretty much like a flawless record when it comes to sponsors, when it comes to her overall brand, because she has been so true, so authentic. So the fact that she is promoting a brand that seems very disingenuous and very not authentic is very interesting to see. And at least my mind goes to, this might be the case of she just has to provide for her family. There's definitely not an infinite road of money when it comes to disc golf. So she might just be saying, hey, I want to make the most that I possibly can at this moment. I'm in my prime right now. I'm basically like a household name in Estonia and Nordic countries. So I really have to capitalize and make the most of it. Maybe that is where her head is at, which is very logical. And if I were her, I would certainly try to capitalize on every moment. But you do have to wonder if this particular sponsorship was worth it or if it was a mistake. But with that said, what do you guys think? Do you have strong opinions about this? Do you think it was basically like a non-issue because she's just doing what she has to do to make a living on tour? I'd love to know. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe. Wild Runs, signing out. Peace.